In the heart of Africa, where the Congo River bends like a mighty serpent, the Republic of the Congo was born into fire and struggle. The land, once tethered under the iron hand of French colonialism, yearned for a voice that would belong to its people. It was a time when Africa itself was shaking off the dust of imperial chains, when leaders like Nkrumah in Ghana, Nyerere in Tanzania, and Sékou Touré in Guinea stood tall against the winds of domination. And in Brazzaville, the beating drum of revolution carried a name that would rise, blaze, and fall in a single generation: Marien Ngouabi. His story was not just that of a soldier or a politician. It was the story of a nation torn between tradition and modernity, between hope and betrayal, between the red banner of socialism and the deep scars of colonial greed. His life became a parable, and his death a riddle whispered across Africa's night skies. Marien Ngouabi was born on March 31, 1938, in the northern town of Ouando in the Cuvette region. His people were farmers, rooted in the rhythm of the land, dependent on cassava fields and the wide forests that stretched like endless carpets. From an early age, Marien was restless. Teachers recalled a boy whose eyes burned with curiosity, whose questions cut deep, and whose determination seemed far older than his years. In Ouando, where life was simple and survival harsh, he dreamed of horizons beyond the dusty paths of his village. The colonial system, though oppressive, had its cracks, and through one of these cracks, young Marien slipped into the world of education. He attended missionary schools, and by the 1950s, he was part of a rare group of Congolese who had touched higher learning. The French, still masters of the land, had designed education to create clerks and minor administrators, not visionaries. But Marien was not content to be anyone's servant. In 1958, as the wind of independence swept across Africa, Marien took a decisive step. He joined the French military academy at Saint-Cyr, one of Europe's most prestigious training grounds. It was an unusual path for an African boy to wear the uniform of the colonizer while dreaming of liberation. At Saint-Cyr, Ngouabi absorbed discipline, strategy, and the art of command. He also discovered socialism, Marxist thought, and the fierce debates of a post-war Europe divided between capitalism and communism. He learned the language of revolution in lecture halls as much as in barracks. By 1960, Congo-Brazzaville declared independence. The tricolor of France was lowered, and the green, yellow, and red of Congo rose. Fulbert Youlou, a Catholic priest turned politician, became the first president. Ngouabi, fresh from training, returned home as a young officer. His path was now tied to the destiny of a fragile new nation. Independence, however, was not liberation. Under President Youlou, Congo slid into corruption and neo-colonial dependency. French companies still plundered resources, and the ruling elite lived in luxury while ordinary Congolese sank deeper into poverty. Ngouabi, now a captain, saw the betrayal firsthand. He mingled with young radicals, students, and unionists who whispered of true independence, of socialism, of African unity. His military background made him a dangerous ally and an even more dangerous enemy to the regime. In 1963, the people rose in protest. A popular uprising known as the Trois Glorieuses toppled Youlou after just 3 days of strikes and demonstrations. The young republic turned to Alphonse Massamba Deba, a man more sympathetic to socialist ideas. For Ngouabi, this was a chance. He became a central figure in shaping Congo's new identity. Ngouabi's influence grew rapidly. He spoke passionately about socialism adapted to African realities. He believed Congo could not be free unless it embraced the working class, the peasants, and the soldiers as the foundation of power. His charisma made him beloved among rank-and-file soldiers, but his radicalism unsettled the elites. By 1966, he faced dismissal from the army for his Marxist views. Yet the soldiers rallied behind him. A mutiny broke out, shaking Brazzaville. The government, unable to silence him, reinstated him, though it knew his star was rising too brightly. On December 31, 1968, the final act played out. With military backing, Ngouabi seized power in a coup. He was just 30 years old. Africa had seen many coups by then, but Ngouabi was different. He was not seizing power for wealth or vanity. He declared a socialist revolution. Under Ngouabi, Congo was reborn as the People's Republic of the Congo, the first openly Marxist-Leninist state in Africa. The red star and hammer and sickle became part of national symbols. In 1969, he founded the Congolese Party of Labor, PCT, modeled after communist parties worldwide. Ngouabi's speeches thundered with conviction. Greater than, "We are building a Congo of workers, we are building a Congo of dignity, independent of imperialism, factories, cooperatives, literacy campaigns." Ngouabi pushed for transformation. He allied with the Soviet Union, Cuba, and China, seeking to anchor Congo within the socialist bloc. Students were sent to Moscow, Havana, and Beijing. The youth were told, "Your future is in your hands, and your hands must build socialism." But the experiment was not without cost. Nationalization angered French companies. Traditional chiefs felt sidelined. The Catholic Church, still powerful, clashed with the atheistic tone of the regime. And within the army, factions brewed. Some loyal, some resentful. To lead a revolution in Africa was to sit on shifting sand. Ngouabi faced conspiracies almost from day one. Former President Masamba Deba remained a thorn, as did ex-leaders who dreamed of return. Ethnic rivalries, north against south, villages against villages, were easily inflamed by rivals. In 1972, an attempted coup nearly succeeded. Tanks rolled and gunfire echoed through Brazzaville. Ngouabi crushed it, but the price was heavy. Executions of conspirators, including high-ranking officials. Suspicion grew everywhere. He survived assassination attempts, betrayals, and foreign plots. The CIA and French intelligence were rumored to have their eyes on Brazzaville, anxious about the Cuban-style experiment unfolding in Central Africa. Ngouabi himself became more cautious, sometimes harsh. He dissolved institutions, centralized power, and surrounded himself with loyalists. Some said the revolution was slipping into dictatorship. Yet among workers and soldiers, his image remained strong. By the mid-1970s, Congo was fragile. Oil had been discovered offshore, promising wealth but also inviting greed. Corruption seeped into the state despite Ngouabi's warnings. His socialist project was besieged from all sides, from the old elites longing for French ties, from radicals who felt progress was too slow, and from ethnic divides that refused to heal. Ngouabi himself seemed weary. Still young, barely in his late 30s, he carried the burden of leadership in an unforgiving era. Friends noticed a shadow in his eyes as though he knew his time might be short. On March 18, 1977, Brazzaville trembled with shock. News spread that President Marien Ngouabi had been assassinated. The details remained tangled in mystery. He was reportedly shot in his own residence, a storm of bullets cutting down the man who had once been the hope of socialist Africa. Soldiers loyal to him were killed alongside. The nation fell silent. How could the red star of Congo be extinguished so suddenly? Investigations pointed fingers in many directions. Some blamed internal rivals in the army. Others whispered of French intelligence and foreign powers who saw Ngouabi as too close to Moscow and Havana. Yet others suggested betrayal from within his very circle. In the days that followed, a brutal wave of repression swept Congo. Former President Masamba Deba was executed. Cardinal Emile Biayenda, head of the Catholic Church, was mysteriously murdered. Pierre Anga, another powerful figure, was accused. The blood of the powerful flowed on Brazzaville's streets. Ngouabi's death was not just an assassination, it was a rupture, a wound that has never fully healed in Congo's memory. Ngouabi was buried with honors, mourned by thousands. For many Congolese, he remained a symbol of courage. The leader who dared to imagine a Congo free from dependency, even if his dream was unfinished. His legacy is complex. To some, he was a visionary who gave Congo dignity. To others, he was a dictator whose revolution faltered. But his name is still spoken with respect in Congo's north, and his face lingers on posters, murals, and stories. Subscribe to Shadows of Power Africa for more powerful stories the world tried to bury.